Hello my friends, welcome back to Dunn Reimagined Design Beginner Series. In this module, we're going to be talking about making flower bases, making petals, walking the dots, and swooshing. So I've got my paints out and I've got some tools. First thing I'm going to do is demonstrate walking the dots, okay? So in walking the dots, what you're doing is you're loading your tool with paint, and then you are not redipping, you're just walking those dots until that paint runs out. And you could be doing it in many different directions. Okay, and the goal is eventually to try and get closer and closer together with your dots. And you're just walking that tool down until it runs out of paint or until you get as far as you need to go. Okay, so let's now create a flower base. And I'm just going to use the 8mm tool. And I'm getting lots of paint on there, so it's mounded like so. And I'm just going to create my flower base. So as a beginner, I highly recommend letting that dry before walking dots around it. But let's say we're going to walk some dots around that. So this is our center up this way, and we are walking those dots up towards the center. So I'm going to start with this nice green. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do it. You can either hug that circle or you can come up a little bit to make this appear a little more domed or peaked. Okay, so now I'm going to walk this tool down, and as it runs down, you can see that the dots are getting smaller. Now you can go up a size in tool now, or you can continue with the same size. So let me go in with the same size tool and create another dot and leaving a bit of a space. And as you can see, this line, if it continued on, right here, would continue this way. And this line would continue this way. And so I'm just lining that up there with that one to start. And this one. Okay. And now I'm going to move up to the 1mm tool, and I'm going to take that lovely pink, and I'm going to come up here a little bit, and then I'm going to walk those dots down. And as I get out, I may need a little bit more paint, so I might single dot a couple of times and then carry on with my dotting, with my walking. Single dot, single dot. Okay, and then, hey, let's move up to the 2mm tool and go on with some nice white. So follow that line, single dot, walk, 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 walk. Single dot, walk, 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 walk. Okay? And sometimes if your dots down here get a little too small, you can always come back and go over them to make them a little bit bigger, okay? Because let's face it, not every time is perfect, so you don't have to remove the whole thing. I'm sorry, I missed filming that one. Moving on to the third. Okay, this time I'm going in with the 6mm tool to create my flower base. I'm going to take the 0.5mm tool, the large end, and create my first dot. Then I'm going to take the small end of the 1mm tool to walk those dots down. And slow and steady really wins the race here. Okay, I'll take that 0.5 millimeter tool again. And let's put our uppermost dot in here. And then we'll walk the dots. And I'm just using the same. And oops, I can always tell there's a little bit too much paint on there. Okay, so now we'll go up to the large end of the 1 millimeter tool. You're getting the idea, right? And then I'll go up to the large end of the 2 millimeter tool and let's get some of that nice white in there. I hope that's helpful in giving you the idea on how to walk dots and make flower petals, which are beautiful on your piece, and honestly we use them so much, right? Let's go in with the 6 millimeter tool. I want to create another flower base, and I want to show you a bit of a different look. Okay, so I'm going to come in again with this 0.5 millimeter tool. I'm going to use the small end of the 1 millimeter tool to walk those down. Okay, now I'm going to take the same 0.5 millimeter tool and I'm going to create 2 dots above and 1 dot above that, and then I'm going to walk those dots down and now I'll go in with the 1 millimeter tool and we're going in with our pink. It's the large end. I'm going to do the same thing, 2 dots and a third, and I think I'll walk down with the 0.5 and I might do 1, 2, oops, come on, get enough paint on your tool there, girlfriend. And then I will move up to the 2 millimeter tool and let's do 2 dots and 1, and I'll do 1, 2, walk, 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 1, 2, walk, 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 walk. Okay, so an entirely different look, right, than these other ones. Really, really don't. That's beautiful. I love that look. Okay, let's now move on to swooshes. So in swooshing, you're going to dot and drag. Okay, now some people will call some of them swipes, some of them commas, some of them swooshes. I'm sorry, I just call them all swooshes. So anyhow, so they can be straight. So you're just, what you're doing is you're loading your tool with paint and then you're going to drag that tool until it gets very narrow at the end, or until you get to where you want to get to. Or maybe it's going to be coming in the opposite direction. So you sort of have to get used to dragging the tool in different directions, right? And maybe it will be left to right. So, okay. or it might be right to left. And I will tell you on some of these, if I'm better at one direction than the other, I might just turn my piece around to access it like that, because if I can, why not make it easier on myself, right? Now, you might also create a swoosh that is curved. So you're going to start here and just drag, 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 okay? And you see how lovely, that's what you like to see, that nice sort of fine tail end. So you can practice doing this and practice getting them close together, but not touching. And yes, sometimes it will be, especially if you want to go far away, maybe you're going to kind of push it a bit first and then get it the rest of the way. Or maybe you're dragging it down, right? So, and you don't know whether that's going to go all the way, so just do that. Okay, you're just kind of pushing it a bit first, pushing that paint along, and then dragging it down. Now, let's show you with a large tool, just the difference. Let's go in with this pink, and let's do one here. Okay, so, I mean, these tools work beautifully for making swooshes, just beautifully. Let's take a tiny tool, 0.5, and create one there. And let's try and get as close as we can to this other one, but leaving a negative space. Now, there is always room for another look, which is when you're creating your swooshes and then you're bringing it right up so there is no negative space. But I would let the first round of paint dry a little bit before going in with the second, or they'll just bleed into one another, okay? And there's just so much you can do with these. So many designs that you can create with them. I'm gonna show you down here alternating swooshes. Okay, so as a beginner, I will often, in my tutorials, advise the students to create guidelines for their alternating swooshes, because alternating swooshes are basically just one going up, one coming down, one going up, one coming down, okay? So we create 0.5 centimeter guidelines, and then we'll take our 0.5 millimeter tool, and we're going to create one set of swooshes going in one direction in one color. I mean, I've done it in rainbow colors, which is beautiful. But let's try this in the, we'll bring some pink ones up. So I'm going to either go on the line or in the space. It doesn't matter which one. Let's go in the space here. And I'll go in the next space. Right, and you're going up to the same zone or line, and you're just creating these in the spaces or on the lines, it doesn't matter which. And if something like that happens where you get a bit of a curve on it, don't hesitate to grab that fine detailing tool and fix it up. Okay, then I would 100% let that dry before going in with my second color. Okay, but then you'll take your second color and you're going to go in between and then drag that down. In between, and drag that down. And it's such a pretty look and such a nice pattern separator, so that you might do an entire circle of it, and it's just so beautiful. If you have a smaller space, two things. One is just lighten up the pressure on your tool, or to go in with a smaller tool. Okay, and it's so pretty, isn't it? Yeah, I just love that. So that's alternating swooshes. Sometimes you'll create a flower and do some swooshing around it. Let's do that. So maybe in this first round, I'll dot. The small end here of this tool. And then maybe I'll create an uppermost dot here. And now I'm going to swoosh down. Get lots of paint on that tool. Okay. Okay, and then create a swoosh. And then maybe we'll create a white dot here and dot down again. Oops, I'm going to need to do a couple of single dots, I think. And can you see that symmetry there? Okay. And maybe we'll do another swoosh, and we'll we'll use the 2mm tool and create an uppermost dot there. But maybe we'll bring this swoosh up this way. And you're just kind of pushing that paint along until it gets where it needs to be. And I would go in after that and kind of just tidy that up, and just tidy this one up. There. Okay, so swooshes are integrated throughout dot art mandalas, and they're just gorgeous. Let me show you another nice look for the swooshing. So I'm just using my template here to create a semicircle in the center there. Let's do the swooshing first, okay? So I'm going to start with the 2mm tool, and I want to come just sort of to the top and the center of that. So if you had another guideline there, you'd be right in the center. Okay, and I'm going to turn it to the small end and drag that down. And let's just fix that up a bit. And we're just dragging those down. I'll take the blue, and I'm following this circle around. And again, if you lighten up your pressure as you go down, you're going to have a nice tail on it. Need a bit more paint there. I'm going to add some more green or yellow. And maybe I'll take that small in there and place a gold dot in there. Then I'm going to take the 0.5mm tool and my white paint. I'm going to start right at the top, and I'm single dotting right now. Then I'm going to come on the other side. And as you can see, I'm just resting on that line. Okay, that's so pretty, so pretty. And let's do another one like that. Circle in there. Let's do the same thing. Okay, and I've got the 1mm tool. Dragging a swoosh down. We're basically doing the same thing here that we did on the other side. But this time, we're going to single dot down part way, and then we're going to walk the dots. Just a different look. So I varnished this board yesterday so that if something doesn't work out, we can just do it again. Okay, I'm going to make a trio of swooshes here. My paint is too thick, so I'm just going to thin it a little bit. Put some pouring medium in there. That's better. If it's too thick, it won't flow off the end of your tool. So let's make 3 dots. I'm just using the 2.5mm tool here. Make 1, 2, 3. Okay. I'm going to take the 1mm tool and drag this first one up. And then I'm going to drag these side ones up beside it. Well, that made a big difference with the consistency of the paint. Okay, so those are really pretty embellishments as you go along creating your mandala designs. Sometimes in between flowers here. So say I wanted to put one in here. And take the small end of the tool and drag that one down, drag that one down, drag that one down, and it just gives a really nice look. And then sometimes I will put a little dot at the base of them. We're going to go in and make another flower base. I'm using the 6mm tool. I'm going to take the 0.5mm tool and I'm going to create 2 dots above here. And then I'm going to use that tool to create a swoosh on either side. Get enough paint in there. You want to get close, but you don't want to touch that paint. Okay, I'll go in with my next color, and I'm coming from this dot up here. I'm going to come around this swoosh. I'm going to come from up here and come around this swoosh. Okay, I'm going to take this paint here and I'm coming down, oh, probably in line with that dot there. Okay, another pink, and I'm coming lower. Okay, and if I'm not happy with that, I'm going to fix it. Okay, and then maybe I'm going to take some blue. And I might just turn that around to make it easier on myself. Okay, isn't that pretty? And you can always go in with a tiny little white dot there too. Okay, and then sometimes you're going to be creating, let's put a flower base in. Oh, that's the same thing. So we'll come on either side of this line, okay? And we're gonna practice creating swooshes in opposite directions, okay? And I'm just gonna go in with the same color here. All right, so we're coming on either side of that line. So with my 2mm tool, and I'm coming from there to there. And if you had guidelines, well, you'd be more accurate, but I'm coming from there to there. And now I want to come up a little bit. And come there to there. Make sure there's enough paint on your tool, and if you have to push it a bit, you do. Need more paint because you have a further distance to go, right? Make sure you're
symmetrical. I sure hope you're practicing along with me.
And you're just practicing keeping that negative space in between, unless your pattern or the project that you're doing, you don't want that negative space. Okay? And you can go as big as you want on this. But this is a good way to practice for consistency, symmetry. Okay, and maybe now I'll start coming down. Let's fix that. I don't like that. Okay, and then if you needed to, you would put some more black base coat paint on there. And then maybe I will take a nice gold dot and place it in the center there. Okay, so that's kind of all about learning, just practicing the flow with your tool, right? Okay, we're going to take the 5mm tool and place a dot in the center, and we're going to create some swooshes. So we'll start here.
Now this is going to be an entirely different look. Now, I am not speeding any of this up because I want you as a student to be able to see it in real time.
I'm going to turn this piece a bit just to make it a little easier on me. There we go. Okay, just another option of things you can do. Okay, I'm going to take my 6mm tool and create a dot, our flower base. I'm going to take the 0.5mm tool and we're going to walk white dots around here. And we're going to take the 1mm tool. I'm going to place a dot above there, and I'm going to swoosh down. Same on the other side. And I take my 2mm tool and let's create 2 dots and a third one. I'm going to go back to the 1mm tool and I'm going to drag those ones down. Okay, and now I'll take the blue. I'm sort of coming at the same there with this one.
just before finishing up this video, I wanted to give you something to practice as well. We should have done this last module, but I forgot. So it's really important to get that center dot right. It's the foundation of your mandala. Everything grows out from there. So if it's off, everything else is going to be off. So I'm just using the 10mm tool here to create my first dot, and I'm just looking at the lines that are crossing one another, and that's exactly where my focus is, to get that dot in and have an equal amount of that circle in all 4 quadrants of those squares. Now I'm going in with the 3mm tool to do the same thing, and I'm just going to practice, and I want you to practice with different size tools and getting that center dot bang on in the center. So now we're taking the 12mm tool and doing the same thing. We're focusing on those 2 lines where they cross. We're perpendicular, and we're just kissing the surface with our tool to hit bang on center. This time we're going in with the 8mm tool and practicing the same thing. And we'll just keep practicing and practicing until we get this right. Now we're going in with the 15mm tool, and I do find these larger tools are a little bit more difficult to get that paint on just perfectly. And so if you don't get enough paint on there, just go ahead and over dot it. But look at that beautiful circle right on the crosshairs. This time we're using the 12mm tool again to create our dot. Lovely. Practice makes perfect, right? I placed a couple more dots, and now we're going to practice dotting around our flower bases. This is a really important technique that you need to learn because you'll be doing this quite a bit. So I'm just taking my 0.5mm tool, and I placed a dot north and south, east and west, and then I'm filling in 2 dots in between. This is leaving quite a bit of space, but I just want you to get the concept of it and how to do it. You won't always do it like this. You'll get to the point where you'll just start dotting and keep consistent space around the dots, keep the dots the same size, and get to the other end of the circle. Now, it can be intimidating because you always think you're going to run out of room or it's not going to be spaced properly. That's why it takes practice. Okay, Carolyn, but what about the second row of dots? So typically you'll move up a size with your dotting tool, and you're just going to go in between the dots that are above. Okay, so there are 2 dots in front of you, and that space in between is where your second row dots go. Okay, this is all a part of sacred geometry. I'm using the 1mm tool here. I went up a size. Now let's do something a little different in this row. I'm using the 2mm tool to place a dot in between the 2 dots that came before it in the blue. But now I'm going to drag the bottom of that circle, get lots of paint in there, and I'm going to drag it down in between the 2 blue dots. You have to be very careful with this. I'd wait till it's dry to do it because you don't want those paints to bleed together. Again, just something a little different. So here's some practice that I would like you to do. I would like you to practice swooshing. Swooshing up, like a swipe. Swooshing down. Swooshing left to right. And swooshing right to left. Up. And practice getting those swooshes closer together, leaving a bit of a negative space, trying different lengths, okay, and then swooshing down, practice that. And then swooshing from the upper right to the lower left.
and the lower right to the upper left. And again, just practice trying to get them closer and closer together, but while leaving a
negative space in between them.
Okay, and then just again, and practice going in different directions beside them. And see, get lots of paint and just see how far you can drag your swoosh. Okay, and I would suggest trying with different size tools as well. This is the 0.5 millimeter tool. Now I do want to show you what happens if I go right up next to that. Now sometimes they'll sit nicely like that, but many times they're going to bleed into one another. So I always suggest that if you're going to do this, let it dry a little bit first. So there's the look when there's no negative space between them. It is lovely, it's beautiful. Okay, and so I think if you practice the swooshing, practice dotting, practice swooshing, practice making your flower bases and your flower petals,
we'll be prepared for next week's module.
Then next week, we'll move on to a plethora of other design elements, okay? The design elements are infinite because
if you can imagine it, it is possible. So we'll see you in Module 8, all about design elements, and please remember, keep on dotting.